AITA for reporting my ex after she forged my signature for $66,430 in debt. I'm Leo, a 38-year-old man, and Vanessa and I had been together for 7 years. We had lived together for 5 of them, talked seriously about marriage, and built the kind of routine I had mistaken for permanence. Every Sunday night, I sat at one end of the kitchen table with my laptop, a notepad, and whatever mail had accumulated during the week. I paid my share of the bills, checked what was coming due, and wrote down anything Vanessa needed to handle. Most weeks, she would circle one item, draw a smiley face beside it, and leave the rest to me. At the time, I thought that was teamwork. Looking back, I think I trained both of us to believe that no matter what went wrong, I would eventually make it manageable. Vanessa was not careless about everything. She could plan a birthday dinner down to the candles, remember details from conversations I had forgotten, and spend an entire Saturday helping a friend move without complaining. She was creative, warm, and ambitious. Those were some of the reasons I loved her. Money was simply the place where her attention seemed to disappear. A late fee would show up, and I would pay it before it became a bigger issue. Her car insurance would be days from lapsing, and I would remind her, then sit beside her while she renewed it. A subscription she meant to cancel would renew for another year, and I would call customer service because she hated those calls. I rarely made a big deal out of any of it. I told myself I was reducing stress. I did not understand that every problem I quietly fixed became evidence, in her mind and mine, that fixing things was my role. About a year before the breakup, Vanessa became close with Tessa, a friend she had met through a local networking group. Tessa was energetic and confident and always seemed to be starting something. A podcast, a retreat, a consulting package, a women's dinner series. Some ideas lasted a month, others only a weekend, but Tessa spoke about all of them as if they were already successful. Vanessa loved being around that energy. At first, I did too. She came home excited. She talked about building a personal brand around lifestyle events and creative coaching. She bought a ring light, started filming short videos in our dining room, and spent more time thinking about what she wanted her life to look like. I encouraged her. I helped move furniture for her videos. I proofread the first page of her website. I took dozens of pictures of her against a white wall while she told me I was holding the phone too low. Then the language changed. She stopped saying she wanted to try something new and started saying she needed to expand. She said she had spent years making herself smaller. She said stability could become a cage if you were not careful. Whenever I asked what any of that meant in practical terms, she looked disappointed in me. One evening, I noticed a charge for a premium branding program on a card we used for household purchases. It was the first of several installments, and the total commitment was $12,000. I asked her about it while she was cutting vegetables for dinner. She kept chopping and said, "It's an investment." In what? In me. I'm not saying it isn't. I'm asking why it's on the household card. She put the knife down harder than necessary. Because I knew you'd turn it into a committee meeting. It's $12,000. It's not due all at once. That does not make it small. She stared at me for a few seconds, then said, "This is what I mean. Everything has to be approved by you." I had not used the word approved. I told her that. It did not matter. A few days later, I suggested that we separate discretionary spending from shared expenses. We could each keep our own cards and contribute agreed amounts for rent, utilities, groceries, and savings. I thought that would give her freedom and protect both of us from arguments. Vanessa heard it as a punishment. "So now that I'm doing something for myself, you want to separate everything? I want us to know what we're each responsible for. You want numbers because numbers make you feel powerful." That accusation stuck with me because there was enough truth in it to hurt. I did use organization when I did not know how to talk about emotion. If we were arguing, I made a spreadsheet. If she was overwhelmed, I made a list. If I felt insecure, I checked the account balances. I was not always easy to live with. But I was also watching our shared expenses climb while Vanessa told me her new spending was private. She wanted me to cover more of the regular bills for a few months while refusing to show me what those months would cost. When I asked for actual numbers, she accused me of making love conditional. The first time I heard Marcus's name, he was someone Tessa knew who had experience with events. Then he became someone helping Vanessa price venues. Then he was in a group chat about their future company. I met him twice before the breakup. He was friendly in a polished, distant way. He talked about building community, and creating premium experiences. But when I asked what kind of revenue they expected from the first event, he smiled and said, "That's Leo, right? Always bringing us back to earth." Everyone laughed. Vanessa laughed too. I remember that more clearly than I should. The public breakup happened at Tessa's house during what I thought was a casual dinner. There were 12 people there. I knew about half of them well enough to make small talk. Marcus was sitting across from Vanessa. After dessert, Tessa turned down the music and said Vanessa had something she wanted to share. I looked at Vanessa, expecting an announcement about the business. Instead, she put both hands around her wine glass and said, "I've made a decision." The room went quiet in a way that made it obvious everyone except me knew what was coming. Vanessa said she had spent years living a life that looked safe from the outside, but felt small on the inside. She said she had confused being cared for with being controlled. She said she was leaving our relationship because it was the first honest decision she had made in years. While she spoke, Tessa reached over and squeezed her arm. Marcus looked down at the table. Someone near the kitchen whispered, "Good for you." I sat there with a plate in front of me and listened to my girlfriend of 7 years explain our relationship as if it were a bad apartment she had finally found the courage to move out of. When she finished, everyone waited for me to react. I asked, "Is this final?" Vanessa blinked. I think she expected anger or pleading. "Yes," she said. "It has to be." "All right." Tessa frowned at me as if I had answered incorrectly. Vanessa said, "That's it." "What do you want me to say?" "I don't know. Something." I looked around the table. One woman had her phone angled down near her lap. I later learned Tessa had recorded part of Vanessa's speech for a private social media story. I said, "We'll separate the accounts tomorrow. We can make a list of what belongs to each of us." Vanessa's face changed. Even now, I do not know whether that was dignity or emotional shutdown. I know only that I could not break apart in front of 12 people who had already decided what my role was in the story. I left before coffee. When I got home, 2 suitcases were gone from the closet. Vanessa had packed before dinner. She came back after midnight with Tessa. Marcus had driven separately because, as Vanessa later admitted, she had already arranged to stay in his guest room. Tessa waited in the car while Vanessa came inside. She stood near the kitchen island and watched me open a note on my phone. "You're really doing this now?" she asked. "You said it was final." "I mean the accounts." "Yes." She crossed her arms. "You're proving my point." "I'm not trying to prove anything. You can't even be sad without turning it into administration." I was sad. I was so sad that my hands felt numb. But she had ended the relationship publicly, packed in advance, and arranged another place to stay. I was not going to beg her to remain financially connected to me so I could demonstrate emotion. We went through the basic items. She would take her personal belongings immediately and return for furniture later. We would keep the joint checking account open long enough for pending rent, utilities, and 2 automatic payments to clear. After that, we would divide the remaining balance according to what each of us had contributed. She asked whether I was going to cancel her phone payment. "It's on my account," I said. "I'll give you until the end of the billing cycle to transfer the number." "And the streaming accounts?" I stared at her. "What?" she said. "I'm asking." "I'll send you a list tomorrow." She looked wounded by the answer, which almost made me laugh. Not because it was funny, but because she had just ended 7 years in front of an audience and was now upset about losing access to a movie service. Before she left, I photographed the larger shared items and texted her the move-out list we had agreed to. She looked at the camera on my phone and said, "This is exactly what living with you felt like." What does that mean? Like everything had to be documented. The truth was that almost nothing between us had been documented until she left. I had trusted the routine. I had trusted the smiley faces on the Sunday lists. That night, I began keeping records. Over the next few weeks, I transferred Vanessa her share of the joint checking account and sent written confirmation. I removed her as an authorized user from a card where I was able to do so. I changed passwords, downloaded statements, and took my personal documents out of the shared cloud folder we had used for household paperwork. There was one old email alias we had created years earlier when we were considering buying a home. It was connected to receipts, insurance records, tax summaries, and correspondence with a mortgage broker. I submitted the request to remove Vanessa and close it, but because it was tied to several services, the process stalled. I changed the password, turned on additional security, and left it dormant while I untangled the remaining accounts. I also started credit monitoring. That part was not revenge. It was the first time I understood how much personal information we had shared over 5 years of living together. Vanessa received everything that belonged to her. I did not withhold furniture, money, or sentimental items. I even found a box of photographs under the bed and delivered it to her mother's house because I did not want an excuse for her to come back. For 2 months, we had almost no contact. Through mutual friends, I heard that Vanessa had moved from Marcus's guest room into his bedroom. I saw a few public posts before I muted her. She and Marcus launched an events and lifestyle brand with professional photos, rented studio space, and traveled to a business conference. The captions were all about courage. One said, "The life meant for you begins when you stop asking permission." Another said, "Security is expensive when it costs you your identity." People who had never seen Vanessa panic over a utility bill commented that she looked free. I asked friends to stop sending me screenshots. I did not need to know whether she was happy. I needed to learn how to live without managing her next problem. 5 months after the breakup, Vanessa called me at 11:42 at night. I almost did not answer. When I did, neither of us spoke for a moment. Then she said, "I need to ask you something, and I need you not to make it weird." That is not a great opening. She exhaled. "Do you know how credit card hardship programs work?" I sat up in bed. "Why? I have one card that got away from me." "How much?" "About 1,100? $11,000. I rubbed my face. "Is it current?" "Mostly." "That is not an answer." "Leo, please. I called because you know this stuff." I told her I was not a financial counselor. I sent her the number for a nonprofit credit counseling resource and told her to contact the card issuer directly using the number on her statement. She was quiet. Then she asked, "Do you still keep most of your savings at the same bank?" Every bit of sympathy I had felt became caution. "Why are you asking me that?" "I'm not." "Forget it." "You just did." "I was thinking about whether they offer personal loans." "You do not need to know where my savings are to ask that." Her voice hardened. This was a mistake. She hung up. I did not call back. 2 weeks later, she appeared at my door with a folder. It was raining lightly. Her hair was damp, and she looked thinner than she had in the polished pictures online. She wore an old jacket I remembered from our relationship, which made the whole scene feel designed to activate a part of me I was trying not to use. "I need 10 minutes, she said. "You should have called. You wouldn't have answered." "That is not true." She looked past me into the house. "Can I come in?" I let her stand in the entryway, but did not invite her farther. She opened the folder and handed me a cover sheet from a debt consolidation package. "I can fix this," she said. "I just need help getting the payment down." The total at the top of the page was $66,430. I looked at it twice. "You said one card was $11,000. It started with that. This says $66,430. I know what it says. How did you get from 11 to 66? It isn't all credit cards." "No." "Slow down. What is the actual breakdown?" She began talking too quickly. Some of it was business debt. Some of it was a personal loan. Some of it was the mentorship program. Some of it was a lease issue. Marcus had promised to contribute, but was dealing with his own situation. I turned the page. There was a table listing balances, minimum payments, interest rates, and delinquency dates. The numbers were worse when separated into categories. There was $18,600 across several cards. A $14,500 personal loan had been used partly for business expenses, even though it was issued in Vanessa's name. The branding program still had a $12,000 balance because of a non-refundable installment agreement. Studio rent, deposits, and a termination fee totaled $8,900. Transfers to Marcus and their project came to $7,600. The notes were vague. Launch, venue, deposit. Several smaller overdue accounts added another $4,830. Together, the total was exactly $66,430. I kept turning pages. Near the back was a guarantor section. My full name was already typed in. My old income estimate was listed. The relationship status said Vanessa and I were current domestic partners. I looked up at her. "What is this?" "It's just how the broker structured the draft." "Why am I listed as your current partner?" "It makes the application stronger." That was not my question. She stepped closer. Leo, please. The payment would be manageable. I could refinance later once the business recovers. Is Marcus signing? His credit is complicated right now. So is yours. That's why I'm here. I turned another page and saw a signature image beneath my name. It was not a wet signature, but it looked like mine. Along the bottom was a faint gray line, the kind left when a page had been scanned from an older PDF. My stomach tightened. Where did this come from? Vanessa reached for the folder. It's a placeholder. I pulled it back. Do not do that, she said. I'm taking pictures of every page that uses my information. It's my application. It has my name, income, relationship status, and signature. The signature is not final. Then why is it there? She ran both hands through her hair. I thought once you read everything, you would understand. Understand what? That I'm trying to keep this from getting worse. I photographed the relevant pages. She panicked. Leo, stop. The deadline is Friday, and if you start calling people before I can explain, they'll freeze the whole thing. The word freeze caught my attention. You said this was a draft. It is. Then there is nothing to freeze. She looked away. I asked, has this been submitted? No, not exactly. What does that mean? It means the broker has the package, but nothing happens until you confirm. That was not the same as a draft. I closed the folder. I'm not signing this. Her face crumpled for a second, then hardened. You have not even thought about it. I am thinking about it. I am thinking about why a document I have never seen already contains a copy of my signature. You know I would never try to hurt you. I know you brought me a loan application with false information. It's not false if you agree. I do not agree. She started crying then, but quietly. Vanessa had never been a theatrical crier. Her eyes filled, her voice became smaller, and she looked embarrassed by both. Marcus left me with the whole mess, she said. I'm not saying that excuses it. Did he tell you to use my information? No. Did he know? She hesitated. That is not a difficult question. He knew I was asking you. I handed the folder back except for the pages I had photographed. She said, can you give me 48 hours before you do anything? I need 48 hours to verify why my name is already attached to it. That is not what I asked. It is the answer I have. She left angry. The lender called the next morning. Melissa introduced herself as a verification specialist. She asked for me by the nickname Vanessa used on some of our old shared accounts, a nickname I had not used professionally in years. I'm calling regarding your guarantee on a consolidation application, she said. I did not guarantee a loan. There was a pause. Can you confirm the application number? I read it from the picture I had taken. Melissa asked me to verify my identity through information already on file. Then she said, carefully, I cannot determine intent. I can document that you deny authorization. Was the application submitted? It entered review 3 days ago. 3 days before Vanessa came to my door. I wrote down the time of the call, Melissa's full name, and every detail she would provide. She confirmed that the application listed Vanessa and me as current domestic partners. It used the dormant household email alias as a contact point. The signature date fell during a week when Vanessa and I had not communicated at all. I told her the signature looked copied from an older document. I can open a dispute and send instructions through verified contact information, Melissa said. I cannot promise a timeline or outcome. Can you send me the application? There is a formal process for obtaining the materials associated with the dispute. Please do not email personal documents to the general inbox. I followed her instructions. After the call, I froze my credit with the major bureaus, placed a fraud alert, changed the remaining security information connected to the old alias, and began checking every recent inquiry. I did not call Vanessa first. That decision became the main thing her family later used against me. Maybe I should have given her one final chance to withdraw the application. I have thought about that many times. But she had already lied about whether it had been submitted, and I had no reason to believe another private conversation would protect me. I called Elena, an attorney I had been referred to for limited guidance. She reviewed the photographs, the separation records, and my notes from Melissa's call. Procedures and exposure can vary, she told me. Your immediate job is preserving what happened. What does that mean in practice? Keep the original messages. Keep copies of the application materials you receive through the proper channel. Communicate in writing. Do not sign something because someone calls it temporary. Can the lender remove me? They can review your dispute. I cannot promise how quickly every company or reporting agency will respond. What do I say to Vanessa? The truth, with no extra emotion. You deny authorizing the application. You will communicate about the disputed documents in writing. That is enough. I wanted a faster answer. I wanted someone to tell me that one phone call had solved it. Elena would not do that. I can tell you what reduces risk, she said. I cannot guarantee how every lender or agency will respond. So I wrote Vanessa an email. I stated that I had not agreed to guarantee the loan, had not authorized the use of my signature or financial information, and disputed any representation that we were current domestic partners. I asked her to preserve all communications with the broker and anyone else involved. Her first reply came 12 minutes later. You reported me before even giving me a chance to fix it. I answered. The application was submitted before you asked for my consent. She replied. The broker misunderstood the timing. I wrote. Did you provide the signature image? 20 minutes passed. Then, I used documents we already had because I believed you would agree after you saw the situation. That was her second explanation. The third came the following morning. You always told me you would never let me lose everything. I relied on that promise. After that, I stopped taking phone calls. She called 6 times in one afternoon. I sent one text. I'm not discussing money by phone anymore. Put it in an email. She replied. You're treating me like a criminal. I did not answer. 2 days later, her mother, Diane, created a group chat with Vanessa, Robert, Tessa, and me. The first message was 3 paragraphs about how fear could make people do terrible things. Diane said one bad choice should not erase 7 years. She accused me of trying to destroy Vanessa because she had left me. Robert wrote that the guarantee would only need to last 6 months until Vanessa refinanced. I asked him whether he had reviewed the application. He said that was not the point. I asked whether he was willing to guarantee the loan himself. He did not respond for over an hour. Then he wrote, My situation is not the same as yours. Diane replied before I could. Leo, the bank already has what it needs. All they are asking is that you confirm what everyone understood you would do. I stared at that sentence. The bank already has what it needs. I had never told Diane the application had been submitted. I typed, How do you know what the bank has? Diane left the chat for 20 minutes, then came back and said Vanessa had explained it badly because she was ashamed. Tessa sent me a private message. Nobody is asking you to take on all of it. I replied, A guarantee for all of it is taking on all of it if she cannot pay. She wrote, That is not likely. I asked, Will you guarantee it? She did not answer that question either. The family pressure became relentless but strangely vague. They used words like compassion, history, and cruelty. No one wanted to discuss the interest rates, the delinquency dates, the false relationship status, or the copied signature. Diane said I could be technically right and still destroy someone. Robert asked whether we could stop using words like unauthorized for 5 minutes. Vanessa said I had promised we were family. I corrected the record once. Then I proposed one face-to-face meeting, with the condition that Nina, my older sister, attend as a witness. Nina knew enough about the relationship to understand my weakness. A few days before the lender called, when I thought Vanessa's problem was one credit card and maybe a small personal loan, I had told Nina I was considering offering Vanessa a limited, documented loan of up to $8,000. Nina had said, Do not rescue someone who publicly blamed you for being the rescue system. I had called her harsh. After the application, I called her accurate. Do not go alone, she told me. I'm not planning a fight. That is exactly why you should not go alone. Before the meeting happened, Tessa contacted me again. This time, she was no longer defending Vanessa. She asked whether I knew Vanessa owed her $5,800. I did not. Tessa had loaned Vanessa money during the first months after the breakup. She said it was meant to cover a venue deposit until ticket sales came in. Vanessa had made 2 small payments, then stopped. She told me the consolidation loan was basically approved, Tessa said. It was never approved. She said you had already agreed. I had not even seen it. There was silence. Then Tessa said, I think she lied to me too. I did not trust Tessa's sudden concern. Her moral clarity had arrived at the exact moment her own money was threatened. Still, she had information. She forwarded a set of messages from a group thread involving Vanessa, Marcus, and herself. I did not treat screenshots as proof on their own. I asked Tessa to preserve the original thread, export what she could, and keep the device. The dates matched references in other emails. Several messages mentioned the lender, the same deadline, and the family meeting before I had been told any meeting was being planned. One exchange changed the way I understood Vanessa's return. Marcus had written, "Leo will complain, but once the collectors start calling and both families know, he'll take over. That's what he does." Vanessa replied, "He hates public conflict. If the application is already moving, he'll be angry, but he won't let it collapse." Marcus wrote, "Submit first. Get confirmation after. Otherwise he'll overthink it." Vanessa answered, "I know how to handle him." I read that last line several times. For months after the breakup, I had wondered whether Vanessa missed me at all. When she came to my door, some stupid part of me had believed the fear in her face meant she trusted me more than Marcus. The messages showed something uglier. She had not come back because she trusted me. She had come back because she trusted my inability to watch a problem burn. I added the messages to a timeline. I also received the lender's application materials through the dispute process. The signature image matched a page from an older document we had prepared when discussing a possible home purchase. The faint gray line at the bottom was in the same place. The income summary was outdated. The old household alias appeared throughout the file. The submission date was 3 days before Vanessa asked me to sign anything. I organized the evidence into 3 folders. One contained the debt documents. One contained the identity and application materials. One contained communications and dates. I excluded unrelated private messages. I did not bring old arguments, intimate details, or anything that would embarrass Vanessa without helping establish what happened. Nina watched me print the timeline at my kitchen table. "You know this looks like a prosecution," she said. "It's a meeting they asked for. You could email all of it. They are saying I agreed. They are saying it in a group chat and to both families." Nina leaned against the counter. "Do you want to protect yourself, or do you want to watch her admit it?" I did not answer immediately. "Both," I finally said. She nodded once. "At least you know." The meeting took place at Diane and Robert's house on a Sunday afternoon. There was food on the dining room table, but no one touched it. Present were Vanessa, Diane, Robert, Tessa, Nina, and me. Marcus did not come. Vanessa said he was no longer part of the situation, which was convenient considering how much of the debt had supported their project. Diane began by asking me to remember who Vanessa had been before the debt. "She is frightened," Diane said. "Frightened people make terrible decisions." "I believe she's frightened," I said. "Then help her." "That does not make the signature mine." Robert sighed. "Can we not start with that tone?" "What tone?" "The legal tone. Paperwork should not outweigh 7 years." Nina shifted in her chair, but said nothing. Vanessa's hands were shaking. She kept rubbing her thumb over the edge of a paper napkin. She said, "I never wanted this to become a family trial." "You asked for the meeting," I said. "Because you stopped answering calls." "I asked for email." "You know I cannot explain everything in email." "You explained 3 different versions in email." Diane interrupted. This is exactly the kind of coldness Vanessa was talking about. I looked at Vanessa. "Tell them what you believe happened." She swallowed. "I asked Leo for help. He said he would look at the documents. At first, he was willing. Then he found out how much Marcus was involved, and he changed his mind." "That is not true," I said. "You were jealous." "No. You were fine until you saw the transfers." "I was not fine when I saw my name typed into the guarantee section." Robert raised both hands. "Everyone needs to slow down." I asked Vanessa, "What date did you say I agreed?" She looked confused. "I do not remember the exact date. Before or after the application was submitted?" "It was never fully submitted." Diane glanced at her. I asked, "So the lender had no application?" "They had a preliminary file." "Did the broker have my signature image?" Vanessa said, "It was a placeholder." "Did you provide it?" She looked at Diane, then back at me. "I used documents we already had," Diane said, "which you had shared with her during the relationship." Nina spoke for the first time. "Years earlier, for a different purpose." Diane turned toward her. "This is a family conversation." Nina said, "You invited me." Robert muttered, "This is exactly why we should have met privately." I looked around the table. "We are meeting privately." Tessa shifted in her chair and stared down at her phone. I asked Vanessa, "Was the application submitted before you came to my house?" "No." I waited. She added, Not in the way you are saying. What way am I saying? You make it sound like I finalized something without you. Did the lender receive it 3 days before you brought me the folder? Diane said, the broker was waiting for your confirmation. That is all. The room went quiet. I looked at Diane. So you knew it had been sent. She pressed her lips together. Robert looked at her. You said it was only being prepared. Diane said, that is what I meant. I turned back to Vanessa. This is your chance to correct the timeline. She looked exhausted and angry. You reported it to frighten me, she said. You knew they could stop everything. You wanted to punish me for leaving. I asked, was the application submitted before I agreed? I believed you would agree. That is not the same answer. You always helped me. That is also not the same answer. She raised her voice. You said you would never let me lose everything. I opened the folder. The first page I placed on the table was the written financial separation from 7 months earlier. It included the date the joint account was closed, the amount transferred to Vanessa, and confirmation that our shared financial obligations had ended. The second page was the application submission record. The third was the lender's verification email documenting that I denied authorization. The fourth showed the signature image beside the older document it had been taken from. The grayscale line matched. I did not hand out the full message thread. I placed 2 printed excerpts on the table with dates and names visible. One was Marcus predicting that I would take over once the debt became publicly embarrassing. The other was Vanessa saying that if the application was already moving, I would not let it collapse. No one spoke for several seconds. Tessa looked at Vanessa. You told me he agreed. Vanessa stared at the messages. Tessa, why would you give him those? You owe me almost $6,000, and you told me this loan was approved. Diane said, that is not relevant. It is relevant to me, Tessa replied. Robert picked up the lender email, read it, then set it down very carefully. I looked at Vanessa. You didn't return because you missed what we had. You returned because your new life needed my credit. Her face went pale. I had planned to keep speaking, but the sentence sounded harsher in the room than it had in my head. Vanessa whispered, that is not fair. Which part? I was drowning. I believe you. Then why are you doing this? Because you assigned me the risk before asking me to share it. Diane pushed the papers away. One bad decision, she said. That is what this is. One desperate decision. Vanessa started crying again. I didn't think of it like stealing his identity, she said. I used what we already had. I didn't invent him. No, I said. You invented my consent. She covered her face. Robert asked, what happens now? The lender is reviewing the dispute. I will not confirm the guarantee. I will not withdraw the dispute. I will not pay the debt. Diane looked at me as if I had struck someone. You can be technically right and still destroy her. I turned to Robert. Will you guarantee the loan? He stiffened. My situation is not the same. Why? I have retirement considerations. The house. Your circumstances are different. They are different because you want me to take the risk. Diane said, we can help with housing. We cannot take on that kind of debt. Then you understand my answer. That is not the same, she said. It was exactly the same, but I did not argue. The meeting ended without anyone changing sides. Diane remained furious. Robert became quiet. Tessa left before Vanessa did. Nina gathered my copies while I stood near the front door. Vanessa followed me outside. The air was cold, and the rain had stopped. We stood near my car while Nina waited a few feet away. Vanessa asked, did you enjoy that? No. She looked at me for a long time. Not even a little? I could have lied. Instead, I said, a part of me was relieved that everyone finally saw the truth. That is not what I asked. I looked toward the house, then back at her. A small part of me was satisfied. She nodded as if that confirmed everything she believed about me. I said, I'm not proud of that, but it does not make the application authorized. She wrapped her arms around herself. Do you care what happens to me? Yes. Then help me. I almost did. Her eyes narrowed. What does that mean? Before the lender called, I was considering offering you up to $8,000 as a documented loan. She stared at me. You would have. Yes. Then why not now? Because I found out you had already volunteered me for all of it. She began crying harder. I was scared. I know. Marcus left me with everything. I know. You always said we were family. We were. That did not give you permanent access to my name. She asked whether we could talk alone another day. I told her any necessary financial communication had to remain in writing. She said, "You make it impossible to apologize to you." I answered, "An apology does not require access." Then I left. The consequences were slower and less dramatic than anyone expected. The lender paused the application, reviewed the dispute, and eventually rejected the guarantee. Melissa never told me more than procedure allowed. She documented my denial, sent notices through verified contact information, and repeated that the outcome could take time. A second credit inquiry appeared after I froze my reports, but it was dated before the freeze. I disputed that separately and kept monitoring everything. For several weeks, every notification made my stomach drop. Elena reminded me to keep the written record factual. I did not contact Vanessa's creditors. I did not call Marcus. I did not post anything online or tell mutual friends the debt total. I wanted to be protected, not involved. Vanessa had to negotiate directly with her creditors. She entered hardship arrangements on some accounts, ended the studio lease, and sold camera equipment, lighting, and furniture from the events project. The sales did not erase the debt. They only reduced some immediate pressure. Marcus stopped responding consistently. When Vanessa asked him to repay the $7,600 she had transferred, he said the money had gone into the launch and had never been documented as a personal loan. I do not know whether that dispute was ever resolved. I know only that his name disappeared from the business pages and that he claimed Vanessa was making him the villain for a project they had both chosen. Tessa demanded repayment of her $5,800 and stopped sending motivational messages. Several friends who had praised Vanessa's courage offered encouragement, but no money. Diane and Robert helped Vanessa with a place to stay, groceries, and transportation, but they did not guarantee the debt. I did not celebrate any of that. There is nothing satisfying about watching someone sell equipment for a fraction of what they paid or negotiate minimum payments over the phone. Vanessa made terrible choices, but fear had made her look physically smaller by the time everything came apart. I had loved her for 7 years. That did not disappear just because I refused to save her. About 6 weeks after the family meeting, she sent me a long email. She admitted that she had known the application was submitted before coming to my house. She admitted that she expected me to sign because I had always taken control when things became too serious. She apologized for using the old file and for letting the broker describe us as current domestic partners. Then the apology shifted. She said reporting the application immediately had been extreme. She said I could have given her 1 day to fix it privately. She said the public confrontation proved that part of me had wanted revenge. I read the email twice. Then I replied, "I accept that you are sorry. I do not accept responsibility for the consequences of an application I did not authorize. I will continue cooperating with the review and protecting my credit. I will not discuss financial help." She wrote back asking for one final dinner so we could have closure. At first, I considered it. Then she accidentally forwarded the full reservation message. Diane and Tessa were included. When I asked why, Vanessa said she thought having people there would make the conversation feel safer. To me, it looked like another audience. I declined. She called it a misunderstanding. I sent one final boundary. Necessary communication about the disputed application may continue through the designated channels. I will not attend another meeting, sign any loan, provide funds, or discuss our relationship in a group setting. After that, the messages stopped. Months later, the lender confirmed that I was not being held liable under the disputed guarantee. I kept every record because the review had taken time and because I had learned not to confuse resolution with forgetting. Vanessa remained responsible for the $66,430. She began what appeared to be a multi-year repayment process. There was no miraculous settlement. No one arrived with a check. The business did not suddenly recover. Once the account requirements were complete, I returned to the dormant shared email alias. The inbox held years of ordinary life. Electric bills, insurance renewals, a receipt for a couch we had argued over and then loved, tax documents, a reservation for an anniversary trip, a message from Vanessa asking me to print something because her laptop was acting up. I saved only the records I was required to keep. Then I closed the alias. For years, I thought being the person Vanessa called when everything went wrong meant I was the person she chose. I was proud of being useful. I built part of my identity around solving the problem before it frightened her. That made our relationship easier, until it made honesty unnecessary. I still do not know whether putting those messages on the table was entirely self-defense. I could have sent the evidence privately. I could have refused the meeting. Part of me wanted Diane, Robert, and Tessa to see exactly how Vanessa and Marcus had described me. I am not proud of that part, but I will not pretend it was not there. What I do know is that I never signed, never paid, and never went back. It took one copied promise and $66,430 to show me that being necessary was never the same as being chosen. If you liked it, don't forget to leave a comment and support the channel by subscribing. See you in the upcoming stories.